The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble lobby of Sterling Corporation as Natalie Brooks pushed through the revolving doors at exactly 7:15. Her sensible gray dress and worn ballet flats made no sound against the polished floor. The building rose 40 stories above the financial district, a monument of glass and ambition where dreams were bought and sold with the signing of contracts. Natalie had perfected the art of being present without being noticed. In 4 years as executive assistant to Benjamin Sterling, she had become like air itself, essential but invisible. She knew his coffee order by heart, anticipated his needs before he voiced them, and smoothed over the chaos his demanding nature created. Yet Benjamin had never once asked about her weekend plans or noticed when she worked through lunch. The elevator carried her to the 38th floor where the executive suite occupied premium real estate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the city awakening below. Natalie settled at her desk outside Benjamin's corner office and began her daily ritual. She reviewed his calendar, confirmed his meetings, prepared briefing documents, and ensured everything would run with clockwork precision. Benjamin arrived at 8:30 sharp. At 40 years old, he had built Sterling Corporation into a financial powerhouse through brilliant strategy and ruthless determination. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than Natalie earned in 2 months. He strode past her desk without acknowledgement, his attention fixed on his phone as he barked orders to someone on the other end. Natalie had already resolved 3 urgent issues that morning, rescheduled a conflicting appointment, and prepared analysis for his 9 o'clock meeting. None of this would be mentioned or appreciated. She had learned to find satisfaction in competence rather than recognition. The morning proceeded with typical intensity. Junior analysts scrambled to meet impossible deadlines. Department heads competed for Benjamin's approval. The office hummed with the energy of people desperate to prove their worth. Through it all, Natalie orchestrated the chaos with quiet efficiency. At 10:30, the morning meeting began in the main conference room. 20 people gathered around the massive table while Benjamin presided from the head position. Natalie sat in the back corner, her tablet ready to capture every decision and action item. She had attended hundreds of these meetings, always present, never participating unless directly questioned. Halfway through a financial presentation, Benjamin stopped the speaker with a raised hand. His ice-blue eyes had caught an inconsistency in the projected revenue figures. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as everyone braced for his reaction. The error was minor, barely noticeable to most people, but Benjamin noticed everything that affected his bottom line. The presenter stammered, trying to explain, but Benjamin's attention had already shifted to Natalie. "You compiled this report," he said. His tone was cold, detached, holding her accountable for someone else's mistake. Natalie kept her voice steady despite the flush creeping up her neck. "The figures came from the quarterly submissions. I can pull up the source documents if needed. What I need is accuracy. When something leaves this office, it should be flawless." His dismissal was absolute, brooking no defense. She nodded, swallowing the explanation that would make no difference. The finance team had submitted incorrect data. She had flagged it in an email that went unanswered. Defending herself would only make things worse, so she absorbed the criticism silently, as she always did. After the meeting dispersed, Natalie returned to her desk and pulled up the source files. She would fix the error, send the correction, and move forward. This was simply how things worked in Benjamin's world. The afternoon brought unexpected change. Sterling Corporation had hired a consulting firm to streamline operations and identify growth opportunities. The lead consultant arrived just after lunch, and from the moment Ryan Mitchell walked through the office doors, something felt different. Ryan was perhaps 35, with warm hazel eyes and an easy smile that seemed genuine rather than calculated. His navy suit fit well but looked comfortable rather than intimidating. When the office manager introduced him to the team, Ryan took time with each person, making real eye contact, asking questions, remembering names. When he reached Natalie's desk, he paused and extended his hand. "Natalie Brooks, I understand you're the person who actually keeps this place running." She blinked, surprised by the acknowledgement. "I do my best to support the team. I've reviewed the organizational structure, and I can already tell you're the central hub here. Everything flows through you. His smile was warm, his attention focused entirely on her. I have a feeling I'll be relying on your expertise quite a bit. I hope you don't mind if I ask too many questions. That's what I'm here for, Natalie managed, thrown off balance by being treated as valuable rather than invisible. Great. How about we start with coffee tomorrow morning? I'd love to understand how information moves through the company. Ryan glanced at his watch. For now, I should probably introduce myself to Mr. Sterling. As Ryan headed toward Benjamin's office, Natalie found herself smiling slightly. It was such a small thing, being acknowledged as competent, as knowledgeable, as someone whose insight mattered. Yet it left her feeling oddly lighter. From inside his office, Benjamin watched through the glass walls as the consultant lingered at Natalie's desk. He saw her smile, a genuine expression he realized he had never seen directed at him. Something uncomfortable twisted in his chest, a feeling he could not name and refused to examine. The meeting with Ryan lasted 30 minutes. When the consultant emerged, he stopped again at Natalie's desk to confirm their morning coffee meeting. Benjamin, gathering files for his next appointment, found himself pausing to listen to their exchange. 7:30 too early? Ryan was asking. That's perfect. I'm always here by then anyway. Excellent. I look forward to it. As Ryan left, Benjamin approached Natalie's desk with files in hand. I need these contracts reviewed by end of day. Of course, Mr. Sterling. He hesitated, something nagging at the edge of his awareness. For the first time in 4 years, he really looked at her. Noticed the way she kept her workspace immaculately organized. The small, succulent plant on the corner of her desk, fighting for life despite the sterile office environment. The faint shadows under her eyes that spoke of long hours and little sleep. Have you eaten lunch? The question surprised them both. Natalie looked up, confusion flickering across her face. Not yet. I'll grab something later. Benjamin nodded curtly and retreated to his office, unsettled by his own unexpected concern. Through his window, the city stretched endlessly, full of people living lives he never thought about. Somewhere in the building behind him, his assistant was working through lunch again, and for the first time, that fact bothered him in ways he could not explain. The foundation of his carefully ordered world had developed a crack so small he barely noticed it. But cracks have a way of spreading, and everything was about to change. The next morning arrived with unusual anticipation humming through Natalie's veins. She found herself choosing a soft blue blouse instead of her usual gray, a small rebellion she barely acknowledged. At 7:15, she stepped off the elevator carrying 2 cups of coffee from the shop downstairs, something she had never done before. Ryan was already waiting near her desk, laptop bag slung over his shoulder, that genuine smile lighting his face. You beat me to it. I was planning to bring the coffee. Welcome to my world. I'm usually 3 steps ahead of everyone. Natalie handed him a cup, surprised by her own ease. They settled in the small conference room adjacent to her desk. For the next hour, Ryan asked questions that no one had ever bothered to ask before. How did information flow between departments? Where were the bottlenecks? What processes frustrated her most? He listened intently, taking notes, treating her observations as valuable data rather than idle complaints. You've essentially created a shadow management system, Ryan said, reviewing his notes. You're solving problems that should never reach you, bridging communication gaps that shouldn't exist. This company would collapse without you. Natalie felt heat rise to her cheeks. That's overstating things. Is it? When was the last time you took a vacation? She paused, genuinely trying to remember. 2 years ago. 3 days. There was an emergency, so I came back early. And Benjamin probably didn't even notice you were gone until something went wrong. Ryan's tone held no judgment, only observation. That's his prerogative. I'm paid to be available. You're paid to be an assistant, not a miracle worker. There's a difference. Ryan closed his laptop. Natalie, can I be direct with you? She nodded, uncertain where this was heading. You're extraordinary at what you do, but you've made yourself so efficient at being invisible that people have forgotten you're human. That's not sustainable, and it's not fair. The words struck something deep inside her, a truth she had buried under years of professional competence. Before she could respond, Benjamin's office door opened. He stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable as he observed their meeting. "When you're finished socializing, I need the Morrison files." His words were clipped, dismissive. "They're already on your desk." "Mr. Sterling, I placed them there an hour ago." Natalie's voice remained professional despite the sting of his tone. Benjamin's jaw tightened. He retreated without acknowledgement, closing his door with deliberate control. Ryan watched the exchange with interest. "How long has he treated you like that?" 4 years, 7 months. The answer came automatically. "And you've stayed because?" Natalie gathered the coffee cups, suddenly needing something to do with her hands. "The pay is good. The work is challenging. And until recently, I didn't realize I had options." Over the following weeks, Ryan became a fixture in Natalie's daily routine. He brought her lunch when she worked through the noon hour. He asked her opinion on strategic recommendations before presenting them to Benjamin. He remembered details about her life, the book she was reading, her mother's upcoming birthday, her dream of visiting Ireland someday. For Natalie, it felt like emerging from a long darkness into sunlight. She had forgotten what it meant to be seen, to be valued as a person rather than a function. Her confidence grew. She spoke up in meetings more often. She pushed back when given impossible deadlines. Small changes, but Benjamin noticed each one. He noticed everything about her now, though he could not explain why. The way she laughed at Ryan's jokes, genuinely amused rather than politely responsive. The new brightness in her eyes. The subtle changes to her wardrobe, adding color where before there had been only neutral tones. Each observation carved something hollow in his chest. Benjamin found himself manufacturing reasons to leave his office, to walk past her desk, to interrupt conversations that had nothing to do with business. His productivity suffered. He missed details in contracts, forgot conference calls, snapped at board members. The unshakable Benjamin Sterling was unraveling, and everyone noticed. 3 weeks after Ryan's arrival, a critical investor meeting threatened to derail a major acquisition. The presentation was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, but at noon, Benjamin discovered significant errors in the financial projections. Errors that would embarrass the company and potentially cost millions. He stormed from his office, fury radiating from every movement. "Who approved these numbers?" The finance team scattered, each person pointing fingers at someone else. The chaos escalated until Natalie's clear voice cut through the confusion. "The error originated in the accounting department's quarterly report. I flagged it 2 weeks ago in an email to both finance and accounting supervisors. No one responded, so the incorrect data propagated through all subsequent reports." Benjamin turned on her. "And you didn't follow up?" "I followed up 3 times. I have the email chain if you'd like to see it." Her voice remained steady, but something had changed. She was not backing down. "I cannot force department heads to read their emails or correct their mistakes. I can only document and report which I did." The room fell silent. No one had ever spoken to Benjamin like that, certainly not Natalie. Ryan stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral. "She's right, Benjamin. I reviewed the communications as part of my assessment. Natalie identified the problem weeks ago. The breakdown was in middle management, not at her level." Benjamin felt 20 pairs of eyes watching him, waiting for his response. He looked at Natalie, really looked at her, and saw something he had never noticed before. Strength, dignity, the quiet power of someone who knew her worth and would no longer accept being diminished. "Fix it," he said finally, his voice tight. "All of you. We have 2 hours." The team scattered into frantic activity. Ryan moved to help coordinate the effort, but not before squeezing Natalie's shoulder in silent support. That simple gesture, witnessed by Benjamin, felt like a physical blow. The presentation went flawlessly, thanks to Natalie's organizational skills and Ryan's strategic guidance. The investors signed the contracts, committing $50 million to the acquisition. By all measures, it was a triumph. Yet Benjamin felt no satisfaction, only a gnawing emptiness he could not name. That evening, as the office emptied, Benjamin stood at his window watching the city lights bloom against the darkening sky. Below, millions of people were living their lives, connecting, caring, being seen by those who mattered to them. When had he become so isolated? When had success become synonymous with loneliness? A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. Natalie stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, professional as always. The investor contracts are filed. Is there anything else you need tonight? Come in. Close the door. She did, wariness flickering across her features. Benjamin struggled for words, fighting against years of emotional armor. The presentation today. You saved us from a significant embarrassment. I was doing my job. You do far more than your job. You always have. The admission cost him something. I should have acknowledged that sooner. Years sooner. Natalie studied him, her expression unreadable. What changed, Mr. Sterling? I don't know, the honest answer. But something has, and I'm trying to understand it. Perhaps you're finally noticing that your employees are human beings with feelings and worth beyond their productivity. Her words were gentle but firm. That's called basic decency. Most people learn it early. The observation stung precisely because it was true. Benjamin had built his empire on numbers and strategy, treating people as resources to be managed rather than individuals to be valued. The realization was not flattering. Ryan Mitchell sees your worth immediately. What does he understand that I've missed? Natalie's laugh held no humor. He treats me like a person. He asks about my day, remembers what I tell him, values my opinions. These are not complicated concepts, Mr. Sterling. Benjamin. My name is Benjamin. After 4 years, you want first-name basis? She shook her head slowly. That's not how this works. You don't get to suddenly notice I exist because someone else paid attention first. The words hung between them, honest and cutting. Benjamin felt something crack inside his chest, something he had kept frozen for longer than he could remember. Want. Regret. The terrible understanding of what he had carelessly discarded. What if I want to change that? Then you'll have to accept that change is uncomfortable and requires actual effort. You'll have to see me, truly see me, not as your assistant, but as Natalie, a person with dreams and boundaries and worth that exists whether you acknowledge it or not. She turned toward the door, then paused. Ryan asked me to dinner tomorrow night. I said yes. I thought you should know since it might affect office dynamics. Benjamin felt the words like a physical impact. Is it a date? That's none of your business, Mr. Sterling. Good night. She left, closing the door with quiet finality. Benjamin sank into his chair, his perfect office suddenly feeling like a very expensive cage. Outside, the city glittered with possibility and connection, and for the first time in his carefully controlled life, Benjamin Sterling understood what it meant to want something he could not simply acquire. The storm had arrived, and he was standing directly in its path. The company gala arrived on a Friday evening, an annual celebration held at the city's most prestigious hotel. Sterling Corporation spared no expense, transforming the grand ballroom into an elegant showcase of success. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory linens, while a string quartet played soft melodies that floated through conversations about quarterly earnings and market projections. Benjamin arrived alone as he always did. Relationships were complications he had never made time for, distractions from building his empire. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands and making small talk while his mind remained elsewhere, specifically on whether Natalie would attend, and if she did, whether Ryan would be at her side. The answer came 30 minutes later when Natalie stepped into the ballroom wearing a dress the color of deep emerald. The fabric draped elegantly, transforming her from the invisible assistant into someone who commanded attention without effort. Her dark hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and for the first time since he had known her, she wore makeup that highlighted eyes he had never truly noticed before. Ryan appeared beside her immediately, offering his arm with that easy confidence Benjamin had come to resent. They moved through the crowd together, and Benjamin tracked their progress with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He watched Ryan lean close to whisper something that made Natalie laugh, watched her hand rest comfortably on his arm, watched the easy intimacy between them that spoke of genuine connection. Something twisted violently in Benjamin's chest. Jealousy, raw and consuming, flooded through him with a force that left him breathless. He gripped his champagne glass hard enough that his knuckles turned white. "You're staring," said Victoria Chen, the company's chief financial officer, appearing at his elbow with a knowing smile. "Not very subtle, Benjamin. I'm observing my employees enjoying themselves. You're watching Natalie like a drowning man watching a life raft sail past." Victoria sipped her wine. "Interesting development considering you barely acknowledged her existence for 4 years." Benjamin's jaw tightened. "I acknowledge all my employees. You acknowledge their productivity. That's different from seeing them as people." Victoria followed his gaze across the room. "Ryan Mitchell saw what you missed. Now you're realizing what you lost before you ever had it. Classic tragedy. I haven't lost anything. Keep telling yourself that." Victoria patted his arm with mock sympathy. "But denial doesn't look good on you. Dinner was an exercise in torture." Benjamin sat at the head table surrounded by board members and executives, going through the motions of hosting while his attention remained fixed on a table across the room. Natalie sat beside Ryan, animated and engaged in a way Benjamin had never seen. She smiled often, laughed genuinely, looked happy in a manner that made something ache deep in his chest. Halfway through the meal, Ryan stood and made his way to the stage. The room quieted as he took the microphone, his expression warm and sincere. "Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Ryan Mitchell, brought in to consult on operational efficiency. I've spent the past month studying this company, and I've discovered something remarkable." He paused, his gaze finding Natalie in the crowd. "Success isn't built on brilliant strategy alone. It's built on the people who execute that strategy with dedication and skill. People like Natalie Brooks." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Natalie's eyes widened, her cheeks flushing as attention turned toward her. "Natalie has worked here for over 4 years, solving problems most of you never knew existed, bridging communication gaps, ensuring everything runs smoothly. She's the invisible force that keeps this company functioning." Ryan's voice carried genuine admiration. "It's time we made her visible. Time we acknowledged that her contributions are invaluable." The room erupted in applause. People stood, turning to face Natalie, finally seeing what had been hidden in plain sight. She rose hesitantly, overwhelmed by the recognition, and Benjamin felt something shatter inside him. Ryan had done in 1 month what Benjamin had failed to do in 4 years. He had seen her, valued her, made sure others saw her too. The realization was devastating. As the applause faded and dinner resumed, Benjamin found himself unable to remain seated. He stood abruptly, excusing himself from the table, and made his way toward the terrace. The night air was cool against his skin, a relief from the suffocating warmth of the ballroom. He stood alone among the potted topiaries, the city spreading below him in a carpet of lights. Everything he had built, everything he had achieved, felt hollow in this moment. Success without connection was just another form of poverty. Running away isn't your style. Benjamin turned to find Natalie standing in the doorway, her emerald dress catching the light. She stepped onto the terrace, closing the distance between them, but maintaining careful space. "I needed air," he said. Simply. "Ryan's speech made you uncomfortable. Ryan's speech made me realize I've been blind." Benjamin turned to face her fully. 4 years, Natalie. 4 years you worked beside me and I never saw you. Never asked about your life, your dreams, what mattered to you beyond spreadsheets and schedules. No, you didn't. Her honesty was gentle but unflinching. "Ryan saw you immediately." "What does that say about me?" Natalie considered the question carefully. "It says you were focused on building something great, and you forgot that great things are built by people who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. It says you lost sight of what matters in pursuit of what counts. Can I fix it?" The question came out raw, vulnerable in a way Benjamin had never allowed himself to be. "Why do you want to?" Natalie's eyes searched his face. "Is it because you genuinely see me now, or because you can't stand that someone else does?" Benjamin opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. The truth was complicated, tangled up in jealousy and regret and something deeper he was afraid to name. "Both," he admitted finally. "I can't stand watching Ryan make you smile the way I never did. Can't stand knowing he values you in ways I failed to. But more than that, I can't stand that I wasted 4 years being too blind to see what was right in front of me. And what do you see now? A woman who is brilliant and strong and far more gracious than I deserve. Someone who kept my entire professional life running while I took credit for success she enabled. Someone who is beautiful and kind and everything I was too stupid to notice until someone else did. Natalie's breath caught, her composure wavering for the first time. Benjamin, you can't just suddenly have feelings for me because Ryan does. That's not how this works. You think this is sudden? Benjamin took a step closer, his voice dropping. I've been unraveling for weeks. Every time I hear you laugh with him, every time I watch him bring you coffee or make you smile, something tears inside me. I can't focus, can't sleep, can't think about anything except the fact that I had you in my life for 4 years and never appreciated what that meant, until the possibility of losing you became real. You never had me to lose. Her words were quiet but firm. I was your assistant, your employee. I was never yours, Benjamin. I know that. I'm not asking you to be mine now. I'm asking for a chance to earn what I should have valued from the beginning. A chance to see you, really see you, the way Ryan does. The way you deserve to be seen. Natalie wrapped her arms around herself, a protective gesture. Ryan makes me feel valued. He asks about my day, remembers what I tell him, treats me like my thoughts and feelings matter. Can you honestly offer me that? I don't know, Benjamin admitted, the honesty costing him everything. I've spent my entire adult life building walls, focusing on strategy and numbers instead of people and connection. I don't know if I can be what you need, but I want to try. I want to learn how to be someone who deserves your time, your attention, your presence in my life. That's not enough. Natalie's voice trembled slightly. I spent 4 years being invisible to you. I can't go back to that, not even if you promise to try harder. I deserve someone who sees me naturally, not someone who has to work at basic human decency. You're right. Benjamin felt the words like a defeat. You deserve everything, and I have no right to ask for anything. They stood in silence, the music from the ballroom drifting through the open doors. Inside, people were dancing, celebrating, living their lives with connection and joy. Out here, 2 people stood separated by years of missed opportunities and words left unspoken. Ryan asked me to dinner tomorrow night, Natalie said finally. A real date this time, not just colleagues having a meal. He wants to take me to that Italian restaurant on 5th Avenue, the one with the rooftop garden. Benjamin felt the information like a physical blow. What did you say? I haven't answered yet. Natalie met his eyes directly. I wanted to have this conversation first, to understand what you're really feeling, what you really want. Because if this is just jealousy, if this is just about not wanting someone else to have what you didn't value, then I need to know that now. It started as jealousy, Benjamin admitted. Watching Ryan see you, value you, make you happy in ways I never did. That tore me apart. But somewhere in the process of watching you bloom under his attention, I started seeing you too. Really seeing you. And what I see is extraordinary. Someone patient and strong who gave me chance after chance to notice her worth. Someone who deserves so much more than I ever offered. Benjamin. Natalie's voice was soft, almost sad. You're describing regret, not love. You're mourning a missed opportunity, not expressing genuine feelings for who I am as a person. How do you know the difference? Because Ryan can tell you my favorite book, my mother's name, the dream I have of opening my own consulting firm someday. Can you? The silence that followed was answer enough. Benjamin felt shame wash over him, hot and uncomfortable. He had worked beside this woman for 4 years and knew nothing about her life, her dreams, the person she was beyond her professional competence. I thought not. Natalie's smile held sadness rather than triumph. You see the problem now? You want me because you can't have me, not because you know me well enough to genuinely care. Then, let me learn. Benjamin's voice held desperation he had never allowed before. Give me time to know you. Really know you. not as my assistant, but as Natalie, as the person you are when you're not solving my problems or managing my chaos. At what cost to me? Natalie asked gently. I've spent 4 years in a position where I had no value beyond my productivity. Ryan showed me what it feels like to be valued for who I am. Why would I gamble that for someone who might learn to see me if I'm patient enough? The question hung between them, unanswerable because she was absolutely right. Benjamin was asking her to risk her newfound happiness on the possibility that he might become someone worthy of her time. It was selfish, unfair, and yet he could not stop himself from wanting it anyway. I can't promise I'll be good at this, he said finally. I can't promise I won't mess it up or revert to old patterns, but I can promise that I'll try, that I'll show up, pay attention, and work every day to be someone who deserves your presence in my life. Not as my assistant, but as someone I value for who you are. Natalie studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she shook her head slowly. That's not enough, Benjamin. I'm sorry, but I can't build something real on promises and potential. I need someone who already knows how to see me, who values me without having to try so hard. The rejection landed like a physical blow. Benjamin felt his carefully constructed world crack open, revealing the emptiness at its core. He had built an empire but lost sight of what made that empire worth having. Success without connection was just another form of failure. Ryan is a good man, Benjamin said quietly. He'll treat you the way you deserve. I know. Natalie's smile was genuine now, touched with warmth. And maybe, in time, you'll learn to see the people around you before someone else has to point out their worth. Maybe you'll become the person who notices first, instead of last. She turned toward the ballroom, then paused at the doorway. For what it's worth, Benjamin, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope you learn that people are worth more than their productivity, that connection matters more than success. But I can't be the one to teach you those lessons. I've spent enough time being invisible. She disappeared into the light and music, leaving Benjamin alone on the terrace with his regrets and revelations. Inside, he could see Ryan approach Natalie, could see her face light up as she said something that made him laugh, could see them move toward the dance floor together, finding rhythm and connection with an ease that Benjamin had never learned. He stood watching for a long time, witnessing what he had lost before ever truly having it. The city stretched below. Him. Millions of lights representing millions of lives, each one containing someone who mattered, who had worth, who deserved to be seen. Benjamin Sterling had spent 40 years building an empire, and in one evening, he learned the difference between success and fulfillment. The lesson was painful, necessary, and perhaps, finally, the beginning of real change. 6 months later, the office looked much the same, but felt entirely different. Natalie had been promoted to senior operations manager, her talents finally recognized and compensated appropriately. She worked from an office 2 floors down, no longer invisible, no longer taken for granted. Ryan had left the company after. His consulting contract ended, but not before taking Natalie with him, in a manner of speaking. They were together now, building something real based on mutual respect and genuine connection. The office grapevine reported they were happy, and Benjamin believed it. As for Benjamin, he had hired a new assistant, a young man fresh out of college. On his first day, Benjamin had asked his name, asked about his family, asked what he hoped to learn in this position. Small gestures, but they represented a fundamental shift in how Benjamin approached relationships. He was learning, slowly and imperfectly, that people were not resources to be managed, but individuals to be valued. That success without connection was hollow. That sometimes the most important lessons came from realizing what you lost when you failed to see what was right in front of you. He still thought about Natalie sometimes, wondered if things might have been different if he had seen her sooner. But regret was useless without growth. And Benjamin was finally, painfully, growing. The glass doors of Sterling Corporation still swung open at 7:30 every morning. But now Benjamin noticed the people who walked through them, saw their worth, acknowledged their humanity. It was a small change, but small changes accumulate into transformation. And perhaps that was the real story, not about lost love or missed opportunities, but about learning to see the value in people before it was too late. Some lessons come gently, others arrive through heartbreak. Benjamin had learned the hard way, but he had learned nonetheless. Outside his window, the city glittered with possibility. Somewhere out there, people were connecting, caring, building. Relationships based on mutual respect and genuine seeing. Benjamin was no longer invisible to himself, and that, perhaps, was where all real change began. The end of one story, the beginning of another, and the quiet understanding that sometimes we must lose what we never truly had to finally learn what matters most.